Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. It is really good to be with you this afternoon for me. Perhaps it's early morning for you if you're in the US, or afternoon or evening on the other side of the world. And today we have Diego with us, who's calling in from the north of Spain at the moment. And before we get Diego up on screen, I do have a few words from some community members that I want to share. And the first one comes from Crystal, and she said, we had the opportunity to invite Diego to Vietnamese innovation projects. Diego is very supportive, persistent, and a star in helping the team find adaptable solutions for the market. Thank you so much for being with us in bringing ExO solutions to Vietnam. Next, we have Francesco, and he just said, Diego is one of the top coaches in our community. I've had the pleasure of working with him and seeing his great talent as a head coach. What is impressive about Diego is not only his expertise and preparation, but also his passion that engages the team during the sprint. I would recommend him to any client. Next up from Soledad, Diego admires Ronmiro, the painter and genius who once said, when I stand in front of a canvas, I never know what I'm going to do. And nobody is more surprised than I am at what comes out. When I start any kind of working session with Diego, I also never know what I am going to do, but it is sure that it'll always be positively surprised, and we'll be learning with and from him. Next, we have from Gary, when the generative AI broke my crystal ball and I needed a crash course to understand emerging LLM trends and technologies, I turned to Diego. Sure enough, he had researched and mastered the basics, the deeper implications, and was already prototyping products and services with the new tools. Diego is an invaluable pathfinder to us all because he already lives in the future we are just coming to perceive. And then lastly, we have from Zhang. Diego is all around one of the best coaches in the ExO community. His background as an architect always brings a unique perspective to understand and solve problems. His way of challenging teams and those around him leads you to new conclusions and viewpoints. His mind and even playful nature makes an environment a joy for everyone to work in. His open mind encourages engagements and discussions to learn from each other. When possible, I always choose to work with Diego. And so with that, let me welcome up Diego. How are you doing this afternoon, Diego?
I'm doing very well, and I'm a little impressed by that amazing feedback that I received. And I actually was thinking that I could spend the whole hour together just talking positive things about these community members. This is the beauty of the community. We have amazing people.
Absolutely. I know Suman always says, I came for the methodology, but I stayed for the people. And I think that's really true. Such diverse people, so many different strengths. And so Diego, quickly tell those people who don't know you, a little bit about yourself and how you came to join the OpenExO community.
Okay, so I'm from the north of Spain. I'm based in Madrid, and I was trained as an architect, as you've already heard. And I've worked a lot as an architect, actually, regarding the future of work. I was trying to understand and make sense how would that be and how spaces would need to adapt to that. And I also work a lot with art and technology. I founded several startups with one successful exit so far, and I'm a board member of several companies, which is something that I really enjoy because I'm really curious and you get to know the peculiarities of each industry, but you also get to make little variations of the DNA of these companies, little mutations that will make hopefully big differences. You get to see that over time. I'm Chief Transformation Officer at a company called Capital Certainty. They are European digital champions, and the founders I met at Singularity University. these people are just geniuses. They are non-conformist and optimistic and passionate about making positive impacts. So it's great to work with these people. And I'm also a professor at IE Business School, which is something that I really enjoy. And I'm very happy also to be a member of the community. How did I join the community? So that happened at the very beginning. The year was 2013, and I was at Singularity University in Moffett Field, this NASA-based in Silicon Valley, with astronauts and with Navy SEALs, and it was amazing. Those of us that were lucky enough to go to the Global Solutions Program, we found there amazing grassroots entrepreneurs and researchers from all around the world that were trying to really make a difference. We were all aligned to try to create positive impact, and we had complementary skills, and we were tackling the global grand challenges using state-of-the-art technologies and frameworks and tools, etc. Salim was the executive director over there. And at that time, he was doing the research with Yuri Van Gist on the book that will eventually be called Exponential Organizations. It was an amazing experience for all of us. And, all of the things that we learned, we wanted to apply it home when we made it back home to our companies, but we didn't know how. So that's exactly where the book was really, really relevant. And then came the sprint. I was part of the foundational sprint in Mexico. That was 2014, almost 10 years ago. And ever since, I've been part of the community in different roles.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been that long. Before we get into the next question, I did want to just give a shout out to Antonio here and Suman, who also sent a message. If anyone wants to ask any questions or make any comments, you can do that, whatever platform you're on. It'll be great to hear from you. And so, Diego, today, the topic is really about radical innovation and disruption and disruptive ideation. So why are you so passionate about all these things?
Yeah, as I said, I'm passionate about change, and there is some wariness about this concept of disruption, right? Like, people are starting to talk about the idea of disruption. Why should we all together aim for radical innovation? Why disruption? See, I wouldn't understand disruption or radical innovation in opposition to incremental innovation. I mean, there's incremental innovation is just fine. It's been working for so much, so long, and the majority of the innovation that we see is actually incremental. Incremental is how nature works, how evolution works, and it really works. But incremental has also some inconvenience. First of all, incremental is stopped. I mean, the path of incremental change is stopped. There is a path dependency. I mean, you just don't get to specific ways. You don't get humans to fly without technology, right? That's not an evolution that will naturally happen once you're in that path. And it also has the inconvenience that has it follows this law of diminishing returns. So you're always after the 8% increase on performance or the 5%, but each time you reach one of these percentages, the next one is going to be much more difficult to reach, and also it's going to be, the returns that you're going to get on that are going to be lower. What happens ultimately is what Clayton Christensen explained, which is the idea that the efficiency doesn't create business. I mean, it reduces the need for capital and labor, and it leads to job loss and economic stagnation. So that is what he described as the innovator's dilemma, and the problem of this kind of innovation is that it doesn't create new products or services. So that's exactly where radical makes sense. Radical is very improbable, but low chance, but it's huge if it works. So it will be a more creator of opportunities. And to be honest, the kind of challenges that we're facing, think of the disruptions coming from technology like the LLM. Right now, everything is up in the air, all of the categories, who's the creator, what is the design, what is the value of content, who's the owner, all of that is in the air precisely because of the LLM explosion. So we have fundamental changes coming, not only from technology. If you think about sustainability as well, the regulation, the implications of the Green Deal that we're going to see first in Europe and rest in the world are going to be huge, and those kind of implications are going to require very fast actions. Incremental is too slow for this. We cannot wait for nature or for these evolutionary process to solve problems such as COVID, for example. But there's more reasons. Then there's the moral component. I mean, I think there's some situations like the hunger or the corruption or inequality that we just shouldn't be waiting, especially if there is a possibility, there's a chance to solve for this. So remember where we come from. We come from singularity. We came here to try to gather around these amazing think tank to solve global grand challenges, to try to give answers that would positively impact humanity by means of leveraging technologies and state-of-the-art tools, etc. But that was our intent. And I would say, the purpose approach, the impactful approach is more fun. The talent density, as we've shown or seen in our community, is just much higher.
Yeah.
So for all of those reasons. Yeah,
absolutely. And so we have some more comments here coming in from the viewers, and this one's from Lars. So he's just saying cheers to those transformative Mexico days. Lars was there as well, right? So yeah, but and then Suman is gonna derail us a little bit with a question, and so I'm gonna have to ask it, which is, tell us about a time when you brought out the most radical thinking out of a sprint team. How did you bring out the best in them?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. So first of all, let me say how we come to radical thinking. Often we can find radical thinking in the solutions that we provide. And John Meadows' architecture is an example of that. He forgot about lintel architecture, and he challenged the solution by means of exploring another solution, which was the parabolic architecture. So that's a very interesting approach that gave birth to probably the most original piece of architecture that we know of at this day. So he challenged the solution, but on the process, he also challenged the problem, and he challenged the assumption. I mean, the assumption was lintel architecture is how we build stuff. So it is by means of identifying the assumptions that we might come up with something that is, by challenging the assumptions, we might find something that is challenging, that will challenge more others. So I understand the assumptions that we make as an elevator, right? At some point you need to conform. I mean, this will be my stage, but the more you can challenge those assumptions, the higher you'll be, and the more radical you'll be, because the closer you'll be to the roots, to the origin, to the essence, okay? So some examples, I can think right now of 3 maybe, working with the HP, and I think Lars was part of that too. We challenged the assumption that the printer had to be fixed in a place. And hence we started exploring the idea of the printer mounted in a drone, or a printer in a handset, or a printer in a Roomba. And that gave birth to this initiative that was recently launched by HP, which is the printer that helps you create layouts, right, in the context of building sites, etc. So one assumption we challenged there, the printer needs to be fixed, and that gave birth to just a completely different field of opportunities. Another one, I remember working with, this was with Racini. Racini is an industrial client that was creating suspension components for Tesla, Maserati, and pickup trucks. And there, the main problem to be solved in that context was the weight of these components. And by means of leveraging technologies like generative design and so on, and 3D printing, in only 5 weeks, we were able to reduce the weight of those components, because they printed them and they tested against their parameters and the metrics, 8%. That was massive. We just changed the solution by means of applying a new, different kind of technology. But the beauty, in my opinion, came when we understood that the problem also was evolving, was changing, because technology not only changes the solution, it also changes the problem space. In that case, this company serves cars that were changing their engines. And the typical noise that the engine would make in the past would cover the little noises that the suspension mechanism would make. But see, with electrical engines, which are quiet, that no longer happen. So now we understood that we have a new problem to solve, which is the problem of noise. And that gave birth to studies and analysis. And because we had used parametric design, we were able to parameterize the problem of noise and hence give a little edge to this company in regards to other companies because they were identifying upfront a problem to be solved. I have another example if you want.
Yeah.
Because this is what I collect and what I like doing. So we
Yes.
were working. This was with the town hall of Miami-Dade. We were working also to try to make a difference in terms of traffic reduction. In that context, we were asked to come up with initiatives or solutions that would help us reduce the traffic by 10%. So we explore many different solutions, and in my team, one of the solutions that we proposed was trying to optimize not the mobility, but the intelligence, the not moving intelligence, meaning we created a process, an application that was called SyncMe. And what we'll do basically is challenge the very need of moving to one place. For example, if you and I were going to meet in the center of the city, and we have that in our agendas, and we happen to be together, but we don't know, the system will inform us that maybe there is a better place to meet instead of that one. And so we will challenge the very need to make that commute, or give us reason to because you're already on the move, maybe you can make use of these little discount, or the fact that what you're looking is right here, etc. Right. So instead of pushing for more fluid mobility, we push for more intelligence in the mobility, which was I believe very interesting as well. So yeah, some of these, more of these, is what I like, finding these little things that could help make a big difference.
No, absolutely. But for the people, that are perhaps in the workplace and currently, how do you get them to test those assumptions that they don't even realize that they have assumptions, right? They're like, no, but that's how things are. That's the truth. How do you work with those people to actually recognize that? Because it's not easy for many people, right?
Right. And that connects to another problem that I really am passionate about, and to the point that I made it my own MTP, which is helping companies and individuals solve the problem of imagination. I mean, you just cannot do what you can't conceive. So you need to conceive change in order to be able to tackle or to become the architect of the future. And first of all, we need to remind people of the non-conformist on them, the optimistic approach that they had in the past, and the idea of not conforming to the status quo or the way things are. So what I typically do is I take basically the business model canvas and all of the assumptions in the business model canvas, and I challenge every single one of them. I mean, what is the concept of industry, and does it still make sense? Because maybe, what is the industry in which Uber or Airbnb is working, or Google or any tech company? There's now a lot of flexibility, and we're starting to talk about arenas. This is return by growth approach. Make sure that you open your scope. And then I go each one little by little, reviewing every single one of the things in the business model canvas, the certainties, like what is the value proposition, what is the relationship with the ecosystem, what is the job to be done, what are the challenges that they're facing, what is the relationship with customers, everything. And we go one by one. And once all of the certainties in the business model canvas that were foundational are turned into hypotheses, now it's much easier to insist on this idea of challenging the assumptions. So it is not obvious, but this logic can be applied to any context. Because ultimately, what we don't know where disruption might come from. We don't know where it will come from, but we know. I mean, Clayton Christensen suggests it will come from the bottom, and there's others that are now suggesting that the majority of disruption actually happens from the side. It's a collision from an industry that identifies core competences and makes a jump into an adjacent industry in which they don't have all of the immune system and so on. So that is also true. So does it come from the bottom? Does it come from the side? We don't know. We don't know where it'll hit us. No, we don't know where it comes from, but we know where it'll hit us. It'll hit us in our assumptions, in our certainties. So what we do is try to find the foundational certainties, the lines of flotation, the modes, the barriers of entry, the competitive advantages, and then we expose them to the disruption research. And then it's easier to see where it might come from.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, so many organizations believe, no, but we've built this moat, and therefore we are safe, right? And in building that moat, there are a bunch of assumptions that perhaps they haven't taken into account or realized. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's why I insist on the idea of thinking out of the moat more than thinking out of the box. I mean, because the moat is what protected your position in the past, but it's also limiting your expansion or your change. The moat protects the scarcity, and what we see now is a need to leverage abundances, right? So in that process, we need to make sure that we break the shell, we break the moat. Eventually, we can definitely benefit from new moats, but we need to make that transition from the old moats to the new moats. What's a new moat now in time of LLMs? I mean, that's a really good question. Is it the amount of data? Is it the value, the specificity of the data? Is it the capacity of generating data at speed? What is it? I mean, it's unclear, but it definitely is not the same thing as it was in the past.
No, absolutely. Now you mentioned LLMs, and of course Gary mentioned it too. So many organizations now are absolutely fixated on it, right? And so the question is, how do we use AI? Now, do you think that's the right question that they should be asking? Or what should they be asking? Because getting fixated on a specific technology doesn't necessarily always, is always the best thing.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of these more than compound exponential change that we're seeing with LLMs, and it's so complicated because, as I said, all of the foundational categories are up in the air. So it's really complicated to plot and to make your own crystallization, your own mental model of what's happening. See, here I try to follow Jeff Bezos' advice. He suggests try to, instead of tracking what's changing, try to understand what is not changing, what will remain unmutable over time. And to be honest, I have a really, really hard time understanding what that is. Nevertheless, I am trying to instead of focusing so much on the technology, trying to focus on the implications, which is the way to go. I mean, this is not about technology. I mean, to the point that I wrote an article on how not to talk about technology, because focusing so much on the technology is the wrong approach. Technologies will change. Everybody will have access to those technologies. So the problem is how they transform your paradigms and what you do with it, and at what speed are you willing to experiment with them. If you're pushing technologies, what you'll have is technologies in search of a problem. And you still haven't solved, you have the solution, but you really don't understand how the problem has changed. So, at this point in which we are seeing such a massive, massive transformation, I think I try to focus on the root again, on the essence, and how that affects us, and makes, I would say, a lot of sense. Technology solves problems, but it also creates new problems, and that is where the opportunity for growth is. So focus on these new problems. Focus on, what are going to be the relevant problem spaces in the near future.
Absolutely. And so now, when it comes to the ExO model, right, of how organizations of the future, or organizations that are able to leverage exponential technologies and thinking, are based, many people do sort of struggle, always asking that question: what should I start with? Of course, we say an MTP, which is hard, but generally, when you're working with teams, what is the approach that you take with regards to that?
So first of all, I mean, it's an introspection phase, what I suggest doing. I mean, let's identify those assumptions, those certainties that have been true for quite some time, but maybe now deserve to be put in a hypothesis block, right, in the box of a hypothesis. Let's see to what extent they still remain, because we are saying in these accelerated times that truth is only temporary. So your certainties should be revisited systematically. And then one thing that I believe is amazing, and not of my own approach, but in general, is the question that we begin with. What will disrupt you? What will hit you in the floating line? to try to create responses, right? Or to try to create, to actually become the industry disruptors. That is not very typical. I mean, that's a conversation that doesn't happen typically. So we create this legitimating umbrella for conversations on topics and behaviors and initiatives that otherwise probably wouldn't take place. And that's something that I really value about the sprint. But then we, by means of revisiting these assumptions, we revisit the purpose of the organization, the foundations, we create a cultural change, or we begin a cultural change. We change the language, we change the conversations, the frameworks they use for innovations. I mean, we change scarcity with abundance, etc. We change the aspirations. We, from incremental to the 10x, right? And we help them imagine how they can become the architects of their own future, which is something that I really love. In a nutshell, what differentiates, in my opinion, our methodology or framework from others is the fact that we do not come with a definition of the problem. We try to collectively figure what is the new relevant problem space, what are the problem spaces, and we have the teams work on them together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I have a bit of a left field question because we've been having so many people ask this of late, and I know you're a father, right? So you have young kids. People just, parents just extremely concerned, right? Do they let their kids use ChatGPT and other LLMs? Do they, is playing all these games really a good thing? And I don't want to put you on the spot to give advice or anything, but with your kids, I guess what is the approach you're taking, in terms of how they're learning and where the world is going, what's happening at school versus what you're doing with businesses. Can that translate to how you actually raise your kids?
So I would say yes, definitely. Actually, I've been to both my kids' schools to create workshops with little kids regarding the use of LLMs and the use of generative design. I think it is critical because it does alter the logic. I mean, it changes everything. And it forces us to question what is the value that we're bringing to the table? What kind of skills should I be educated on? As a professor at iBusiness School, one of the things that I've challenged in my classes, in the masters on innovation that I run, is the idea of rating the solutions. I'm no longer rating the solutions. I'm also rating, and more importantly, rating the questions. It is the question that will unlock a completely different understanding of the kind of challenge that you have. The question is or not filled with assumptions. So by means of just reading the question that one is asking, I think you can have a very, very good understanding of what the mental models are. And that is what we should be rating. And that is what we should be building, educating, training, evaluating even. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Build and educate and train and rate even the very questions or the prompts, if you want. I mean, equating prompts to questions here. And I'm telling them that they need to use LLMs, not only one LLM, but various, several. Give me the prompt and make sure that they try to build out of the 5 responses that they have, something on top of each one of them. I mean, first, make a critical comment on why this LLM is limited, where it gets it wrong, compare it to the others. And now that you see what generative AI can do, now you tell me what you can do on top of that. So that is also something that I'm bringing to my kids, and I'm asking them systematically to use it because I don't want them to be blind to this technology.
No, absolutely. And as you were just speaking about that, and thinking back to when I was doing my master's, where it was very much based on the answers you could give, right? And I really like that really all we should be testing is can you think critically and leverage the information that is available to you, right? And so being able to test that is so important, right?
Yeah, it's the quality of the question. And there's so many quotes. Voltaire said, judge a man by the quality of his questions, precisely. It's all about the questions. So now, I mean, now the LLM, the massive disruption or change that it's bringing is that it's changing completely the way that we interface with technology, with knowledge, with information, with intelligence, and it's conversational. And now we can forget about tax, because what we need is to start. There was a writer that wrote a book called Reclaiming Conversation. So this technology is forcing us to having a conversation, question-based conversation with intelligence. So we better perfect the art of asking good questions.
Absolutely. Diego, we've pretty much come to the end. We could speak for a whole lot more, but I know that that you need to get ready for the top of the hour. I always want to ask one closing question, which is, if there was only one thing you could share with people today, what would you want them to know?
Oh, wow. If there's only one thing that I could share, what I would share is the passion that I have for curiosity, for discovery. I mean, for some reason, I think I've never, my level of excitements have never lowered as I grew up. And I would hope that people around me would share that enthusiasm. That would drive to less conformism that I really, really dislike and hate. And probably that will also drive us to challenge many more assumptions, to make radical changes there where we need them.
Absolutely. Diego, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. I look forward to chatting again, and hopefully I don't think we've seen each other in person for 3 years or more.
I know it's about time.
It's about time, but yeah, it's wonderful chatting to you, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
And you too. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So great chatting with Diego. As always, so full of insights and information, as many of the community members shared. And in fact, Augusto just sent me a WhatsApp while we were talking, just to say, Diego, full of energy, always overwhelming ideas, so wonderful. Enjoy the conversation. So it's been wonderful chatting. We will see you all again next week when we're speaking to Sophie from Melbourne, Australia.